A relic of its time, Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer initially launched on a Nintendo 64, making good use of the most powerful console at the time, and gave F-Zero X a run for its money. Arguably, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was a faster game than a Nintendo futuristic racer. It even looked better and much more detailed tracks than F-Zero X. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer wowed audiences at the time with its spectacular 3D environments, fast speed, and varied landscapes set across 8 worlds and 21 tracks. The main content is packed into Tournament Mode, which hosts 7 races, and is broken down across 3 difficulty settings. Progress is made by beating each track and finishing in a top position. The races themselves are taken from the Phantom Menace, but are hardly recognisable outside of the dueling Anakin Skywalker in Sebulba. Nonetheless, there are numerous pods and races to unlock across Tournament Mode. Players are rewarded for winning and placing higher in races by being given more in-game currency, Truggets, which can be traded with the junk dealer Watto. As per the ongoing thread in the Phantom Menace, Watto will trade or sell parts to upgrade the pod races, which can be anything like improving attributes such as turning capabilities, top speed, and durability. The last of those being quite important in races, as going at ultra fast speeds can more than often or not overheat engines or see a number of collisions. Colliding with a wall at fast speed will incinerate the pod and it will respawn back on the track from a standing position. However, more resilient pods won't always smash up first time and can be repaired by pressing the appropriate button and command to do so, at a temporary sacrifice of your acceleration. Pod handling has been vastly improved, or this could be just improvements to the input device given the N64's rather temperamental joystick and the Dreamcast's sometimes awkward 3D control stick. There used to be a time where it did feel like the pods would be gliding with very little grip in the original renditions. However, the Nintendo Switch version seems to make pods a bit more glued to the ground, which has improved the way that the pod handles, although it's taken away some of the difficulty of slamming on the air brake and the glide button to make an educated guess on the corner. Remapping the button configurations is somewhat of a cumbersome beast, with 2 traditional control schemes available, one being the original button mapped affair, and the other using the triggers to accelerate. However, each button mapping control scheme has its own issues, and both have the uncomfortable button placement for ship repairs, which is mapped to the R button. This can be tricky when having to use the ZR button or the A buttons to accelerate. Fortunately, the Nintendo Switch's OS button remapping can help resolve the lack of native customizable control scheme. Interestingly, it seems that Nintendo has been fortunate enough to get additional control schemes in both of its versions of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, the Nintendo 64 having a unique dual throttle control scheme that utilised 2 controllers plugged into controller port 1 and 3, and now the Nintendo Switch version includes advertised dual Joy-Con motion control function. Graphics have also improved with time as Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was ported from the N64 to the Sega Dreamcast, where the visuals were smoothed over. The framerate also went to a steady locked 30 frames per second, and there was additional music added to the tracks. It seems that the new developer Asper, who also handled the recently re-released Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy and Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, has used a Dreamcast version as its foundation to build the latest renditions for PC, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 4. Unlike the N64 version, the Switch iteration now includes the pre-rendered intro scenes from the Dreamcast and original PC versions, but the same choppy framerate is apparent right from the get-go. It does take away from the allure of this enhanced port when these cutscenes could have easily been improved upon. Fortunately, it is telling that Asper has put its time into the improving textures on the track, scenery, and the pod races themselves, all of which have had a much needed lick of paint. Improvements have also been made to the draw distance, which wasn't horrific in the original versions, but there was an occasional moment of popping that was indicative of the time. The Nintendo 64 notoriously used an abundance of fog effects to cover up the lack of draw distance in many titles, and Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was not immune to this. Fog is still prevalent in this version, although this time it's only used as an environmental effect to build the atmosphere for the track. It is a bit perplexing as to why the HUD elements such as track position, speed, time and lap number didn't get refreshed. Likewise, the less said about the character models, the better, which only feature in the in-game menu. The soundtrack is the same that featured in the Sega Dreamcast version, with renditions of John Williams' famous original soundtrack. At the time, this was a stellar score, and it still is, but given the amount of Star Wars music that there now is, and that's right at the fingertips of the development team, and with the much vaster capabilities of the newer systems, it is a shame that more themes were not added. The voice actors and actresses' soundbites and taunts are still available and reprised by the original cast, although there seems to be some sort of sound warbling bug that crops up in races and makes it sound as if the pods are in a wind tunnel. It's quite off-putting, but also something that can hopefully be fixed in a post-launch patch. Despite the upgrades in performance and graphical departments, it does appear that there are a few missing features from the previous iterations that should have made it into this release. Modes such as online high scores, which were available in the Dreamcast version in 1999, 8-player multiplayer, which is available on the PC, and a much stronger force feedback, such as HD Rumble, pales in comparison to the Dreamcast version. Local multiplayer doesn't really quench the thirst to be able to play online, with only a standard 2-player mode available, which is fun and it runs smoothly with no real hiccups. But lacking an online mode is such a shame and a missed opportunity, mainly due to the lack of any challenge whatsoever, as the AI is far too easy to conquer. This is a competent port of a Nintendo 64 classic. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer looks great with the added spit shine, it controls tightly and performs excellently. There's no real slowdown in frame rate either. Loading screens have also been removed entirely, which was not really an issue in the original versions, but it is something that should be commended here. At a budget price, many will be pleased that this will help them relive a piece of nostalgia, and for those who are on the fence, do not hesitate, as this is a great quality port in both docked and handheld modes. Yet it will leave others wondering what could have been done by adding in an online multiplayer and improved AI. Remember to check out cubed3.com for all the latest previews, reviews, and opinion pieces, and be sure to give us a follow across social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks everybody for listening, watching, and doing everything that you do. Remember, subscribe. Thanks guys!